All right, here we go for actually part 3 of Kehaar. Watership down. I got like 5,000 pages left to go on this. For the next few days, a lot of hard work went into feeding Kehaar. Acorn and Pipkin boasting that they were the best insect catchers in the warren. Brought in a great deal of numbers and beetles and grasshoppers. At first, the gull's principal hardship was lack of water. He suffered a great deal and was reduced to tearing at stems of the long grasses for moisture. However, during his third night in the warren, it rained for 2 to 3 hours and puddles formed on the track. A cluttery spell set in. A cluttery spell. Okay, whatever set in. As it often does in Hampshire when hay time approaches. Hay time? Okay, just say fucking harvest. When harvest approach, why hay time? High winds from the south laid the grass flat all day, turning into a dull, damascene silver. Okay, it's a dull silver. Don't have to put the fancy word in there. The great branches of the beeches moved little, but spoke loudly. There was squalls of rain on the wind. The weather made Kehaar restless. He walked about a good deal, watched the flying clouds, and snapped up anything the foragers brought. Searching became harder, for in the wet, the insects burrow into the deep grass and had to be scratched out, which is true. One afternoon, Hazel, who now shared a burrow with Fiber as in the old days, was awoken by Bigwig to be told that Kehaar had something to say to him. He made his way to Kehaar's lobby without coming above ground. The first thing you noticed, the gull's head was molting and turning white, though dark brown patch remained behind each eye. Hazel greeted him and was surprised to be answered in a few words of halting, broken Lapine. Eventually, Kehaar had prepared a short speech. Okay, this is the guy that's going, Mr. Hazel, he sees rabbit work hard, said Kehaar. More like growled Kehaar, but I no finish now. Soon I go find. That's good news, says Hazel. I'm glad. Kehaar relapsed into head grow vernacular. That means, the rough language of the hills or the mountains. Mr. Big, he's plenty good fella. Yes, he is. He say you no get mothers. He's finished mothers. Plenty trouble for you. Yes, that's true. We don't know what to do. No mothers anywhere. Listen. I get pig find plan. I go find now. Being little better. Then finish, then I fly. Fly for you. Find plenty mothers. Tell you where they are. Yeah? Why, that's a splendid idea, Kehaar. How clever of you to think of all of it. You very fine bird. Is finished, mother. for me this year. It's too late. All mothers sitting on nest now, eggs come. Poor Kehaar cannot get no ass this year.
Yeah. Thanks to the cat.
Well, thanks to the cat, yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta go and screw the cat, bastard. Anyway, here we go. I'm sorry. Another time I get murdered. But now I fly for you. We'll do everything we possibly can to help you. The next day, the wind dropped and Kehaar made 1 or 2 short flights. I keep thinking the secret of blue water seagull. Lisa, me, you saw me. Oh, okay. However, it was not until 3 days later he felt be able to set out on his search. It was a perfect June morning. He was snapping up numbers of little white-shelled downland snails from the wet grass and cracking them with his great beak. Then he turned to Pigwig and said, "Now I fly for you." He opened his wings. The 2-foot span arched above Bigwig, who sat perfectly still while the white feathers beat the air around his head in a kind of ceremonious farewell. Laying his ears flat in the fan draft, he stared up at Kehaar as the gull rose rather heavily into the air. When he flew, his body was so long and graceful to the ground, it took the appearance of a thick, stumpy cylinder. From the front, as which his red beak projected around his black eyes. A few moments he hovered, and his body rising and falling between his wings. Then he began to climb and sail sideways over the grass and disappeared northward below the edge of the escarpment. Bigwig returned to the hangar with the news that Kehaar has set out. Remember, the bird is going to go find some ass for the bunnies to make a whole bunch of bunnies. A whole bunch of misties, right?
Yep.
The gull was away for several days. Longer than the rabbits had expected. Hazel could not help wondering whether he would really return, for he knew that Kehaar, like themselves, felt the mating urge and thought it was quite likely, after all, he would be off to the big water and the raunchiest teeming gull colonies of which he had spoken with such feeling to Bigwig. As far as he was able, he kept his anxiety to himself. One day, when they were alone, he asked Fiber whether he thought Kehaar would return. "He will return," said Fiber unhesitatingly. "And what will he bring with him?" "How can I tell?" replied Fiber. But later, when they were underground, silent and drowsy, he said suddenly, "The gifts of El Ra, trickery, great danger, and blessing for the Warren." When Hazel questioned him again, he seemed to be unaware that he had spoken and could add nothing more. Bigwig spent most of the hours of daylight watching for Kehaar's return. He was inclined to be surly and short. Once when Bluebell remarked that he thought Mr. Pigwig's fur cap was molting sympathy for absent friends, he showed a flash of his old sergeant major spirit and cuffed and abused him twice around the honeycomb, until Holly intervened to save his faithful jester from further trouble. "What? You're going to be a dick? I'm going to go and kick your ass there, man. I'm going to kick your fucking ass. Talking shit about my cap? Fuck him." It was one late afternoon, with the north wind blowing and the smell of hay drifting from the fields of Sidmontium. That's an actual town? Okay. when Bigwig came hurling down into the honeycomb to announce Kehaar has returned. Hazel suppressed his excitement, told everyone, keep out of the way while he goes and sees him alone. On second thought, he took Fiber and Bigwig with him. The three of them found Kehaar back in his lobby. It was full of droppings, messy and meldorious. Rabbits will not extrude underground, and Kehaar's habit of fouling his own nest had disgusted Hazel. But now, in his eagerness to hear his news, the Guano, Guano, smell seemed almost welcome. Yeah, dude, I'll put up with your shit, but yeah, what news you got, bro? So I guess you get she's a new Conrad, huh? Okay. Temporary. Glad to see you back, Kehaar, he said. Are you tired? Being still tired. Fly little bit, stop little bit. Everything go fine. Are you hungry? Shall we get you some more insects? Fine, good fellas. Plenty beetle. All insects were beetle to Kehaar. Clearly, he had missed their attentions and was ready to enjoy being back. Although he no longer needed to have food brought to the lobby, he definitely felt that he deserved it. Bigwig went with his foragers, and Kehaar kept him busy until sunset. At last, he looked shrewdly at Fiber and said, Mr. Little One, you know but I've been ya. I have no idea, replied Fiber rather shortly. Then I tell you, all this been here, I go along in this way, that way. Where sun come up, where sun go down. Is no rabbits. Is nothings. He stopped and looked at Fiber abrasively. Because remember, Fiber says they're going to get blessings of the Warren through El Iran. Well, kiss my ass. Then I go down in bottom. East farm these big tree around on Little Hill, you know? No, we don't know it, but go on. I show you east not far. You see them is rabbits. Is rabbits live in box. Live with men, you know? Live with men? Did you say live with men? Yeah, live with men in shed. Rabbits live in box in shed. Men bring food, you know? I know this happens, says Hazel. I've heard of it. That's fine, Kehaar. You've been very thorough. But it can't help us, can it? I think he's mothers in big box. No one else, no rabbits in fields, not in wood, no rabbits. Anyway, I no see them. That sounds bad. Wait, I tell you more. Now you hear, I go flying other way, where sun go down middle of the day. You know this business, big butter. Did you go to the big water then? Asked Bigwig. Nah. Not near so far. But out this way the river, you know? No, I haven't been so far. East River, replied Kehaar. Is here a town of rabbits. On the other side of the river? That would be Hazel, probably. Nah. You go that way, East Beach to Field Berry. Then, after long way, he's come to town of rabbits. He's big. And after that, from road is iron road to Den River. Iron Road? Asked Spider. Yeah, Iron Road. You have not seen Iron Road? Men make 'em. Kehaar's speech was outlandish and distorted at the best of times. It was only too common for rabbits to be unsure what he meant. Vernacular words like he used now of iron and road, familiar enough to seagulls, his listeners as scarcely ever heard. Kehaar was quick to impatience, and now, as often, they felt at a disadvantage in the face of his own familiarity of wider world than their own. Hazel thought quickly. Two things were clear. Kehaar evidently found a big warren some way off to the south, and whatever the Iron Road was, the warren was on this side both of it and the river. If he understood rightly, it seems to follow that the Iron Road and the river could be ignored for their purposes. Kehaar, he said, I want to be certain. Can we get to Rabbit's Town without bothering Iron Road and river? Yeah. Not go to Iron Road. Rabbit Town in bushes. The big lonely fields. Plenty mothers. How long would it take to go there from here to the town? Oh, I think 2 days. It's long way. Well, good for you, Kehaar. You've done everything we hoped. You rest now. We'll feed you as long as you want. Sleep now. Tomorrow, plenty beetles. Yeah. Yeah, Jesus, dude. Almost at the end of the book. Oh, sheesh. All right, I'm going to keep going. Now, hopefully the camera will continue to do so. The rabbits made their way back to the honeycomb. Hazel told Kehaar's news of the long, disorderly, intermittent discussions begun. This is the way of reaching a conclusion. The fact there was a warren 2 to 3 days' journey to the south flickered and escalated down amongst them as penny wavers down through deep water, moving one way and the other. Shifting and vanishing and reappearing is always sinking towards the firm bottom. Why would he have to say all that shit in a kid's book?
Yeah.
Really? Just say the rabbits are talking about it. Fuck. Hazel let them talk, run as long as it would, until at last they dispersed and slept. The following morning, they went about their lives as usual, feeding Kehaar and sometimes playing and digging. But all this time, just a drop of water soon swells until it's heavy enough to fall from a twig. The idea of what it meant has become clear and unanimous. By the following day, Hazel saw it was plain that it happened that the time for speaking has come. He was sitting on the bank at sunrise with Fiber and 3 or 4 of the others. There was no need to summon a general gathering. The thing was settled. When it reached them, those who were not there would accept that he had said without hearing them all. This warren Kehaar found, said Hazel. He says it was big. So we can't take it by force, said Bigwig. I don't think I want to go in there and join it, Hazel said. Do you? And leave here? Replied Dandelion. After all our work? Sometimes I reckon we would have a thin time, but no. I'm not sure any of us wants to do that. Well, what we ought to do is to get some doughs and bring them back here, said Hazel. That would be difficult, do you think? I should have thought not, said Holly. Holly would be the oldest rabbit amongst them, by the way. Big warrens are often overcrowded. Some of the rabbits can't get enough to eat. The young does get edgy, nervous, and some of them don't have any kittens on that account. At least the kittens begin to grow inside them, then they melt away again into their bodies. You know this? I don't know, said Strawberry. That's because you've never been overcrowded. But our warren, the Thierra's warden, was overcrowded a year or two back. A lot of the younger does are reabsorbing their litters before they were born. The Thera told me long ago that El made a bargain with Lord Frith. Frith promised him that rabbits would not be born dead or unwanted. If there's a little chance of a decent life for them, a doe's privilege is to take them back into her body unborn. Yes, I remember the bargain story, said Hazel. So do you think there might be some discontented does? That's hopeful. We're agreed then. We ought to send an expedition to this warren, and there's a good chance of becoming successful without fighting. Do you want everyone to go? I say not, said Blackberry. 2 or 3 days' journey and all in danger and going and coming. It'd be less dangerous for 3 or 4 rabbits than high are. 3 or 4 can travel quickly and aren't conspicuous, and the chief rabbit of the warren, this warren would be less likely to object to a few strangers coming with a civil request. I'm sure that's right, says Hazel. I'll send 4 rabbits, and they can explain how we came to this difficulty and ask to be allowed to persuade some does to come back with them. I don't see any chief rabbit could object to that. I wonder which one of us is best to send. He's all right. You must not go, said Dandelion. You're needed here, and we don't want to risk you. Everyone's agreed on that. Hazel has known already that they would not let him leave the embassy. It was an embarrassment, but nevertheless he felt that they were right. Other warrens would have little opinion of a chief rabbit who would run his own errands. Besides, he was not particularly impressive in appearance or as a speaker. This is a job for someone else. All right, he said. I know that some of you wouldn't let me go, and I'm not the right fellow anyway. Holly is. He knows everything about moving in the open, and he'll be able to talk well when he gets there. No one contradicted this. Holly was the obvious choice, but to select his companions was less easy. Everyone was ready to go, but the business was so important that last considered each rabbit in turn, discussing who would be most likely to survive the long journey, to arrive in good shape, go down a well into a strange warren. Bigwig rejected on the grounds he might quarrel with strange company and inclined to be silky at first, but then come around when he remembered he can go on looking after Kehaar. Holly himself wanted to take Bluebell, but as Blackberry said, one funny joke and the expense of the chief rabbit might ruin everything. So finally, he chose Silver, Buckthorn, and Strawberry. Strawberry said little, but he was obviously very much pleased. He suffered a great deal to show that he was no coward, and now he had the satisfaction of knowing that he was worth something to his new friends. They started early in the morning in the gray light, and Kehaar has undertaken to fly out later that day to make sure they were going in the right direction and bring back news of their progress. Hazel and Bigwig went with them to the southern end of the hangar and watched as they slipped away, heading to the west of a distant farm. Holly seemed confident, and the other three were in high spirits. Soon they lost to sight in the grass, and Hazel and Bigwig turned back into the wood. "Well, we've done the best we can," said Hazel. "The rest is up to them and El Ra now. But surely it should be all right." "Not a doubt of it," said Bigwig. "Let's hope they're back soon. I'm looking forward to a nice plump doe and a litter of kittens in my burrow. Lots of little bigwigs, Hazel. Think of that and tremble." That is the last of the episode.
Horn dog rabbit.
A horn dog. Well, which one? All of them. I think all of them are. So, what do you think?
Kehaar is just being Kehaar. He'd be nasty shooting in his hole.
You know,
That's birds for you.
lazy birds, right? Well, the only thing we can hope for is our journey is successful. Maybe. And I threw in some extra sounds, things like that as usual. Unlike all the other Watership Down storybooks, huh?